Okay, I have a pair of shears here that were sent in to me by a customer. This is another one of those examples of a mistake that was made out in the sharpening field. The shear was put into the clamp on an okami, and it was put into the okami wheel with the blade up. It jammed into the wheel and it may have bent the blade a little bit. It's hard for me to tell. I did some test cutting on it earlier and it would not test cut well on any of the materials. You can see here that just on double Kleenex that this is just folding right after about a third of the way up the blade all the way up to the tip. So I'm not sure if it's a sharpening issue or if it is a set issue, but we'll have to find out. Also, we're going to correct a couple of other things that were done wrong on the shear. On the blade itself, there's multiple faceted angles on the front surface where it's been worked with a convexing clamp but not polished enough. I may do one blade on the okami and one blade on the Hiratu to show how to dress those up. Same thing on this blade as well. Some inside work will need to be done, although that's not nearly as bad looking as I've seen as far as shears coming in for repair. But we'll see what we can do with this one. All right, to start with, I'm going to take the first blade that I'm going to work with. I'm going to do the same thing to the second one. I'm going to see if I can address the ride line issues that this shear has. Just want to make sure that the ride line is actually going to come up correctly. If this blade is bent, I need to know now whether or not that is the case. So I'm going to work the shear blade before I do any sharpening to it, test it and see. I'm going to put the complete ride area up onto the stone, about a 45-degree angle, first finger over the screw hole. I'll pull back towards myself to start, work back and forth. You can actually see on the block that there is a bit of a hole in the blade. The tip is touching, but there's also a little gap right in this area right here of the shear. I'll make just a few more strokes. We'll come off of that, take a look at it and see. Look in the light and see how that looks. And it does have a little bit of a dead spot right in this area. It's going to be hard to see on the video. One of the difficulties when I'm shooting YouTube videos is the resolution of this. I'll see if I can get a picture of this and show this to you. Not quite right, so we're going to continue to work this shear on the water stone until I bring that all the way in. And you can actually see that that's already started to come in because you can see the black mark is already all the way across the water stone. So we'll take a look at that again and see if we have a little better result. And that looks a little bit better, but it has a radiused edge right in about this portion of the shear here. So we'll continue working until we get past that damage before we do any sharpening. Always come to a complete stop before you lift off of your water stones. If you don't, you risk the possibility of actually twisting slightly as you come up, and that would radius that edge. All right, that's got a thicker ride line than I'd like to have, but we're going to be doing some sharpening on it anyway, and hopefully that will alleviate some of that. Let's see if we can get a decent view of the ride line now, and that's not too bad. You can kind of see what I've recreated on the inside of the shear. So we'll go to the sharpening step at this point. Okay, now I'm going to start the reconvexing process of this blade. This blade actually has a pretty hefty angle cut onto the face of it. If I turn it here, hopefully you'll be able to see this in the video. Just trying to get it to focus in on this using my hand in that background. You can actually see it's got a pretty stout angle. Probably looks like it's about 40 degrees, but we'll do a scratch test on the machine and see. Have my 30 micron disc on the Hiratu. I'm going to clamp the blade in, set the fixture for 45 degrees for a right-handed shear, and then we'll do a scratch test. Turn that down to a speed of 5 or so. Rotate this around, and actually it's actually about a 45-degree angle. I don't know if you can see that scratch test in the video or not. There we go. And so we're actually in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start the initial cut of the blade. and create my burr. I'll bring that burr all the way out to the tip. I'll check for that burr, which we have, and then I'm going to actually do my convexing. Rotating, you can do a couple of styles of convexing. You can rotate and a convex, and you can do a step up, which is more of a progressive edge, where you round upwards as you go backwards and forward. This will also disturb the scratch pattern slightly. So I have a pretty good convex now up in the middle part of the shear. I need to work in the throat or ride area of the shear. Now, and the tip looks pretty good. Could dress that up just a little bit more as well. So I'm going to do a little additional convexing in the early entry and throat of the shear. So reconvex that front surface and round it out. Take a little more in this section. This is mainly just cosmetic stuff that I'm doing right now. Same thing with the tip. Alright, we'll be able to polish that back in, but we can see here in the video that it's actually quite nicely rounded out. Let's pull this out. We'll shut this down and we'll show that off just a little bit. Let's see if we can bring that in a little bit better. You can actually see that that's been rounded and reconvexed at this point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to the 15 and the 9 and redress that up. Got some burr left over there as well, and we'll see if we can take care of all those things before we go back over to the waterstone. I'm not going to show the 15 and the 9 just for the sake of time. Okay, I've reconvexed the front surface with the 15 and the 9, and it's made for actually a pretty nice looking convexed edge. And I've actually worked on the waterstone already and recreated my line on the inside, so I have a nice looking ride line on the inside of the shear. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the polishing step. So we'll pop the 9 off. Pop the felt disc on with the 3 micron diamond paste. Start the unit up, bring it up to full speed. I'm going to start by doing just a little edge work. Just a little bit of polishing is fine. Don't need to overdo it on the edge. One of the biggest mistakes that sharpeners make is they actually tend to over polish. Do not do this, it will push the hair. Right now I'm just doing work on the front surface and not hitting the edge because I'm not turning all the way back to 45. This is all cosmetic that I'm doing. We'll flip this around, swipe it down to take a look at it, and we have a nicely polished surface. So we are ready to move on to the next blade, and I may do that on the Okami. Okay, I have my convexing clamp set up on the Okami Gold, and I have reworked the inside of this shear like I did the first shear. There's still a dead spot right in the early anterior on the tip on this. I'm going to have to sharpen past this because this is pretty severe. You can also see that the tip is bent out just a little bit. You can see the thickening of that tip right there, so we'll deal with that a little bit through sharpening. I'm going to have to get rid of all of this area right here that is really quite radiused on that inside. Working it on the waterstone is going to take a little bit too long, so we'll see how far we get with sharpening and then bring it the rest of the way in with the waterstone later. But we're going to do this at 45 degrees. I'm going to clamp my blade in halfway over the pivot hole with the pivot hole to the right. I will do a scratch test on the shear just to see where we're at, and at 45 we're right at the edge. I'm going to start the machine up, and I'm going to do what was attempted to do here originally, which was facet this year. Start the throat and work my way to the tip. I'm going to make a few strokes. So I really want to try and get past as much of that damage at the tip area as I can. I'm going to do a little extra work up there at the tip as well. Again, I'm going to work it more until I sharpen past that damage into the ride line. Trying not to go past the backside of the ride line that I've already created. Just a light touch, working that tip. And one more stroke. And that should do it. I have a pretty hefty burr at this point, and we do have a definite angle on there, so what we're going to do is we're going to do some step-ups on that. One of the ways you can do it is with a coin. We'll use a coin in this video. Use a penny. I'm going to put it up underneath the stop block, and that's going to actually increase my angle slightly. So we'll make a pass across, just lightly. I'm going to move the penny up, about halfway up the clamp, make another pass, move it up again until the penny actually touches the hump part of the clamp right here. Ooh, that's always nice to show on the video. That's going to scratch on that back side right there. We'll have to dress that up when we do the polishing. And a slight touch across that cut. Let's see if we can get rid of some of the little nicks that I created right there. Alright, so we have a series of faceted angles on the shear. Let's see if I can not bump it on the wheel this time while I'm trying to shoot this. So we'll take this out. I'm going to work it on the waterstone, and then we will go ahead and polish that in. Alright, so now I've worked the inside on the waterstone. The tip is still a little bit overdone as far as that ride line is concerned, but it's going to have to do. I had to do a little extra work to get the rest of that damaged edge out. I'm going to go ahead and clamp the shear in, again halfway over the pivot hole with the pivot hole to the right. We'll flip this over into the polish or honing position. Touch our polishing wheel, and we're going to work back and forth. This is the new Okami polishing wheel. We had to replace the old style wheel because they're no longer made. So I'm doing just my edge right now. Now that I've polished my edge, I will go ahead and add some more polishing compound. And I'm going to step up, polish, step up and polish, step up and polish, step up and polish. And continue doing that up the face of the shear. Now I'll start to work my way back down the top block until I get back down to 45 degrees. I'll make a few additional passes and then take a look at my edge. And now I have a nicely rounded and smooth out convexed edge off of the Okami as well. So now I'm ready to put this shear back together. Okay, and just to give you an idea of the quality of the convexing, the blade on the right was done on the Heritage. The blade on the left was done on the Okami. And you can see that for all intents and purposes, both of the blades are fully convexed. Basically look about the same. Alright, so we'll put this back together now. Put our stud in first. You want to look for your recessed hole. That's where the stud will go in. Flip this around. Mate those two pieces together. This has the small rubber insert for tightening this blade up. We'll start this down. This is the Wolf UFO tool. I'm going to continue to tighten that up until get it reasonably snug. I'm going to spread just slightly and then just let the blades rub together. That helps pull some of the burrs back. That's one way that you can actually remove burrs on a beauty shear. Just be very cautious when you do this. You can also cut them off on paper towel. Do a 1/3, 2/3 complete cut is actually what I like to do. And I'm going to test my free single layer of tissue this time. See if it cuts to the tip, which it does, smooth and clean with no pull. So that looks good. We'll also test on here, which ultimately this is what is being cut anyway, and with very little slide, you can see the shear is back in good working order again. So just remember, when you are working with the Okami Gold or any of the other machines, make sure you follow proper procedures, and definitely make sure that when you do the polishing that you flip the clamp over so that the blade is down along with the wheel. You never want the blade facing up into the wheel, or you can do some damage.